Welcome back to the Lipedema Podcast. We are your hosts, Shell
and Tiana, and today we have a very special guest, a return guest actually. It's clinical nutritionist Aimee Buchanan. Aimee, thank you so much for coming back to us today.
Thank you so much for having me again. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's so good to have you. So we are going to get straight into it, and this will be a little bit of a different episode today because we already know about your lipedema journey.
Yeah.
So we are today going to talk about nervous system regulation. Now, this is huge, and I think collectively, even just us three sitting here have had a massive, massive year, and that can leave us feeling depleted and fatigued. And so I am chomping at the bit to hear, what is nervous system regulation, Aimee?
And oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this topic because as a nutritionist, like digestive system is like our bread and butter. Hormones are a big part, but also the nervous system. Like we talk about it in the form of stress, right? We always hear about it in stress, but what the nervous system regulation, what that refers to is the process of managing how your body responds to stress. So our nervous system is constantly balancing between, and I'm sure you guys have all heard of this, the parasympathetic, so that's the rest and digest, and then the sympathetic, so that's the fight or flight response. And so when we experience chronic stress, our sympathetic nervous system is overactive. So that keeps us in a heightened state of alertness. This is where it gets really interesting because this triggers inflammation and exacerbates conditions like lipedema. So nervous system regulation is about returning to the state of balance, allowing the body to rest, recover, and heal. This can be done through mindful practices, breath work, meditation, grounding exercises, but most importantly, creating a safe, nurturing environment. And I know that one's quite difficult.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's only so much we can control in our lives.
Yeah.
So, And I'm a special ed teacher, and that has been my big thing. Like, I create a harmonious, calm classroom so that everyone does feel safe. And then, there's less overreactions and less of that fight and flight. But there are so many other factors that come into even like a day that you really, I find a lot of people function at that fight and flight, and they just stay there, and that becomes their normal.
Yeah, we don't realize that a lot of the time we don't even realize we're in it. And for me, I've noticed it for me, it's like I'll get like a body anxiety, but I don't really get that mind anxiety, but I get the body anxiety. And I'm learning more now what the connection is. And most of the time it's like I'm either in flight or freeze. With my family, I definitely go into fight, but you can live in that response and not really understand the connection or how to move out of that response.
Yeah, it just becomes your normal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like if you don't, and it's usually a big health crisis or something goes wrong that we realize that that's how we have been living. Like our body hasn't been able to rest and digest, like being in this state for so long, it becomes chronic.
Yeah.
So what is the connection between us healing and taking care of our nervous system? Like how does that impact? So you could be eating all the beautiful clean foods, you could be drinking all the water, doing all the conservative management.
But what's the connection? Yeah. If you don't have, this one's really interesting, I think, like the connection between taking care of our nervous system. And then ultimately it comes down to, we all want to kind of heal, and not on the level of, I know with, Lippy, we don't have a cure, right? So when we're talking about healing, it's really to just say that if our body wants to heal, if that makes sense, like our body is trying its best to work for us. So, and I like to use the word heal there's so many factors that come into play here, but we want to use those words because we want to, let our bodies know that we believe that it can get to that state where the connection, so healing from any chronic condition it's not just about diet and exercise or taking the right supplement, which we all are trying to find, that not so much the quick fix, but we're all trying to find something that's going to just be that next thing. But it also involves creating balance. So within the nervous system. So chronic stress and emotional suppression, that fuels inflammation, which in turn activates that nervous system fight or flight response. So this disrupts the bodily functions, and this is when our lipedema symptoms intensify. So that pain and swelling, like, have you ever noticed when you're in a really big state of, like, say, like you were saying before, a big family event, like you don't even know that these things you've been living in this state, or life just feels so overwhelming. But this is when your body just feels like it's not responding to diet or exercise or anything that you're trying to help your body with. And this is what it's all about, because your body's in that, fight or flight response, and, inflammation literally is just so heightened. So by learning to regulate the nervous system, we reduce the body's overall stress levels. And so when the body feels more at ease, so what you're doing in that classroom, with your children, that, inflammation is reduced, and then the healing can take place more effectively.
So you spoke about suppressing our emotions.
Yeah.
A tricky one.
I know. The suppressing the emotions, don't you think, like, is just such a huge thing that everyone does? Like, we don't speak our truth. Like, a lot of us don't speak our truth, or we find it really hard to speak our truth. And when we suppress our emotions, like, it's, living inauthentically, and our body reacts in ways that it may not be visible right now, but it accumulates over time. And so this emotional suppression that we're talking about, this leads to chronic stress, and that increases inflammation, and then that disrupts bodily functions. So again, this is where, like, it's going to manifest in our bodies as swelling and pain and discomfort. And so the living inauthentically, this is one thing that I have been really trying to work on myself with, denying who we truly are or trying to fit into societal expectations. That creates a constant mental strain. And I'm sure you see that a lot with your children, right? Like, with the kind of work that you do, that stress of, like, not being enough. And that keeps our body in that sympathetic state, which, is something that we really want to kind of pull ourselves out as much as we can. Like, yeah, it's there for survival, but if we're always in survival mode, it's not great. But when we're not aligned with our true self, it's like, we're fighting against our bodies rather than nurturing it. So yeah, I think it's a really big one. Recently, like, I've been doing a lot of work with my clients on this one, because I think it's just a big piece missing in, our care. So, I focus a lot on nutrition, but there's this whole nervous system space, and living inauthentically creates a lot on our system.
And I can imagine that lipedema community, when they first get diagnosed, and you see it in some of the posts that they put up on some of the communities, that they are very heightened by the diagnosis, and it takes them maybe a few days, and then they just sort of put a post out, and that you can feel their emotion in that post. It's very emotional to get a diagnosis, and it takes them a little while. So how might we go about regulating those emotions of a new diagnosis or a setback in our management plan?
This is where, trying to, like, create that supportive, safe environment for our nervous system. So I know for me, exactly what you were just saying, like, I rebelled. And I think we spoke about this last time, but when I got diagnosed, even though I was a nutritionist at the time, I really rebelled. And then, that took me into, like, went into that fight response. Not in a good way where I was fighting for my body. Or life. I literally was just like, no, I don't care. I'm not listening to this. I'm giving up on everything I've done. Because when you hear that there is no cure, like, it's really hard to digest, right? So I think when we're trying to, like, create a safe environment for our nervous system. This, really involves setting up like a physical space for yourself that is calm, quiet, and soothing. Like for me, I know as a child, I didn't have that. I didn't have a really safe, quiet, calming space to go home to. And I know a lot of children in Australia, around the world, don't have that, and we are supposed to like learn to co-regulate from our parents. So a lot of us already haven't had that experience. And then we've got to kind of try and learn how to do it as adults. Making sure your home feels safe. And that can be really hard. Like I know, and you guys have had children too. At the moment, my home with a toddler is the most dysregulating. Yeah. And I have worked on it a lot. And I've got to that, that kind of space of like, you know what? It's mess. She's making memories. Mess can be cleaned. And I've been able to kind of like sit with it. But then at times when I feel a little bit overwhelmed or heightened, and possibly with external factors that are going on, I need there to be order. And I'm like, I've got to go around and just clean my space, tidy it up so that I can feel relaxed. And so even if you can't do that in your whole home, creating a small space that feels that you can kind of go and, get away, to like just to relax and, try to regulate. But it also means surrounding ourselves with people who are supportive, who respect our boundaries and who encourage emotional expression. And I think that one's really big because a lot of us, we all know when we, you have that feeling of when you have friends or when you have, I think family members are the easiest one to kind of identify here. But we've all got those family members that make us feel that we go into that sympathetic state. Wow. We either go into freeze, we go into flight. We don't feel like we can use our voice, speak up, speak our truth. So really finding those people. And that goes to say with the expressing, putting it out there that you've just been diagnosed and going out to the community to try and get support. If you are getting a pushback or some, responses that you're not liking, exit, remove yourself from space in that moment. You might not be strong enough to be in that environment right now. Wow. But the other biggest thing I think is internally. So we create a safe environment in ourselves. And that is really from, working on those past traumas, so going like breath work is a great one to kind of set intentions to release any of those, kind of like core beliefs about ourselves, yoga, mindfulness. So these activities can help us shift from that state of stress to a space of safety. So, so that signals our nervous system that it can rest, that it can try to start healing, because it is a really big one to shift. And I think there's a lot of these things that go really deep for us, and we can do all these practices to try and we can have a toolkit, right? So we can go and help our nervous system hop in that cold water. We can, do that little breath work or meditation, do a yoga practice if we need to. But we really want to get to that core issue, as in, we need to work out what is making our body go into that state of, say for me, a lot of the time I'm safe in my environment, right? Yeah. But my nervous system a lot of the time gets triggered by something and doesn't think that it's safe. So it's finding out what was that trigger and helping my body to release that emotion around what's tied to that. So yeah, I think it's a big one.
Yeah, and it sort of speaks to being present in the moment as well, because I struggle a lot when I think about what I've got to do, the things that have to be done. And so say with a new diagnosis and knowing all of those things that support lipedema, compression wear, exercise, anti-inflammatory nutrition, it sounds like a lot when you're thinking about the rest of your life and every single day. Whereas, if you just take it day by day, like today I can do this, and don't think about what you can do tomorrow. Just think about the fact that you can tick one thing off the list today, because I can see myself spiraling into, well, this isn't sustainable for tomorrow and the next day, and I can't do it 5 days a week or 7 days a week. So tense when you think about how you may fail in the future.
Yeah, and I think reframing, if there's a way that you can reframe just those words, into a more positive way, like as in, like, so you're feeling overwhelmed with all the things that you have to do. And like, there's that, the compression, all the things that help our body, and you kind of go, I can't fit that in. But if you can turn it into a positive of, one thing, putting compression on just a little bit once a week helps my body. And if I can do it more, great. But, we get so focused because it's very overwhelming, because the fear, right, of progression is actually, fear really takes over us, doesn't it? Like, fear can steal our joy so easily. And
it's the unknown, because we don't know.
We don't
Is
know.
it going to progress?
Yeah.
Is something going to happen that's going to trigger it?
Yeah.
And it's that unknown, because we can't cure it. We got to live with it. But how do we contain it?
And I think, like, every aspect, like every part of our life, like, going into menopause, having a baby, pregnancy, there's all these steps along the way that is so unknown. So we kind of everyday living and looking to the future of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen after this time? But yeah, Tiana, like you're saying, like, living in the present is really the best way we can tackle each day.
Yeah, and Aimee, as you were also saying, sorry, Shell, I was going to use you an example, Shell, about flipping the script and all the things that you have to do. Shell has an amazing example about brushing. If you want to talk about that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Shell, but
that was exactly what I was going to say. It was only recently I watched a little clip, and it was like, you have a ceiling and a floor. And so the ceiling is hitting every single conservative thing every day. And that's a perfect day. That is a perfect day, but that's not going to happen every day. And it might not happen once a year. So have a floor. So my floor is dry brushing. If I can do nothing else, I've hit my target because I dry brushed today. And that has taken so much pressure off of me, just knowing that one thing, I've nailed my day.
Beautiful. And I know for me, this is going to sound, it's not that achievable, but I do help women get there. Nutrition is just my flaw because I'm a nutritionist, right? So I live and breathe for food, but I've gotten to a place that I do have food freedom. I love cooking, and I also know what I need to be putting in my body. But I love every single meal that I eat, and I want to nourish my body, and I want to feel that way. And I've also broken from the cycle of binge eating and all those other things that, emotionally tie me to food. And so healing that relationship's been very helpful. But I just know I can always rely on the food I put in my, body. And then I will try and do all those other things, because it's just, it is a lot. And especially now when you have a toddler, it's like, when do you fit that time in? When she goes to preschool, I'll fit that time in.
Yeah, feels like so far in the future, but it will come.
I know.
And then it'll be here and you'll be like, oh, it's been 1 second since I've had a baby.
I know. And you just be sad, right? Yeah.
Just to wrap up that safe environment, you're talking breath work and yoga if you can. If you can't make your full house an environment of safety, maybe a room or an empty shelf or something that you can go to within your environment. Script in your language. So, the things that you have to do turning into self-care. I think there's some really good practical tips. And of course, nutrition, which is what you live and breathe. Also, really for creating that safe environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move on to something that's quite possibly the most difficult part for our Lipedema community is self-acceptance in our bodies.
That just gave me just goosebumps all over my body when you've just said.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? What role does self-acceptance play in our healing of lipedema?
Well, to me, I just think it's foundational in our healing, and it's a long journey also. That's something I really want people to understand, because, and I think it's going to be ongoing. That's the other thing. I don't think that you fully just, like, I feel like I'm in a really great place of self-acceptance, but I know things pop up, like how pregnancy changes your body, that's another hurdle you've got to kind of go through. But when we fully accept, your body, and this is hard to do, especially with someone, as lipedema, but your mind and emotions, they're also linked. So without judgment, that's where it's that's the part of acceptance, right? It's without the judgment.
Yeah.
You free yourself from the stress of trying to change yourself to meet those external standards. And so for women with lipedema, this is such a huge shift. And so often there's a feeling of being at war with your body. Like I'm sure you both understand that feeling, fighting to look or feel different. But true healing begins when we embrace ourselves. I just got goosebumps again, just as you are, because acceptance creates a space for your body to naturally, so that will calm your nervous system, which then in turn reduces inflammation and then moves more towards that balance that I was talking about. So when you love and accept yourself, and a lot of the time when I work with, women, when we're talking about the external part, like I'm always like, we need to be neutral with the body. We don't have to go move from lunge straight away. That whole gratitude of, oh my gosh, I love my body. I love my legs. It helps me, get places. You don't have to go there. You just want to be neutral.
Yeah.
Want to look at it, and you don't have to feel positive or negative to begin with. But it goes deeper than just our body, right? So we know that women have surgery. We know that even when you say you get that body that you've always wanted, there's still much more going on, and you don't completely love yourself because love is so much deeper, right?
Yeah.
And so it's more about loving who you are. And this is where I was talking about the core beliefs before, because as little children, we form these core beliefs about ourselves. So even if we remove our lipedema fat, we still are going to have this internal dialogue that we might need to change. But this is when we fully love, accept ourselves. We will stop, contributing to that body's stress and inflammation, and that enables your physical health to improve. I want to tell you a story about, I recently ran a 12-week program, Lipedema program, with a small group of women. And at the start, the opening circle, I made all the women set intentions, set some goals. And I also pushed them because I, said, what are your goals? And, they had some goals, and I said, and they told me what things are coming up. And I was like, I actually want you to change your goal to this, X, Y, and Z. A lot of it was about getting their body in swimmers, and, to the point where it could just be in front of family. It's not even about getting out in public, right? Anyway, during this session, a lot of the women, every single one of them actually, was like, I just can't see myself, Aimee, doing this in 12 weeks. I cannot see myself by the end of it. I said, that's fine. I just want you to put it down on paper. Okay, I've got goosebumps again. Every single one of those women by the end of the 12 weeks met their goal. Every single one of these women literally couldn't believe, like they were just in awe of themselves, that how much their mind had shifted to this self-acceptance in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I was like, my God, that just makes me so happy, because this is what I'm trying to achieve, right? Because from a stage one's perspective, or like what I feel, other people looking in, people kind of go, well, Aimee, that's really easy for you to do or say because you're stage one.
Yeah.
But the burden is just as heavy for all the stages. This is real, like shows just with women in society who don't even have lipedema, right? Who actually do have what we would perceive these perfect bodies. You all have this beautiful best friend who still complains about something on her figure. So it's a really big shift, but it's, it just transforms your life when you can lift free of that burden and really step into self-acceptance.
Being in calm, and the opposite of that is sort of being in survival mode, really.
Yeah.
Not living authentically is part of that. And you did speak emotional well-being. Those goals that those women had were more emotional, weren't they?
Yeah.
Stepping out in their swimmers in front of family members and stuff, that's quite internal. Can you speak about stepping out of survival mode and living authentically, and how that helps your physical health as well?
Yes. And I love that, Tiana. I love that you actually made that connection, that we literally put this as if it's a physical problem that we have. And you really did pick up that actually it's a really internal battle, right? That what we are facing, as much as physically out on the outside. But once we can really shift that perspective, you really like just what these women, that did my program, it showed that you can change that perspective, and then emotionally, like things just open up and change for you, and you don't view yourself in the same way. But so when we live in survival mode, so we're constantly reacting to the external pressures, like, feeling like we're always on guard. This mode, that triggers that stress response, which then increases inflammation, and that worsens the physical symptoms for those of us living with this condition. So transitioning to authentic living, where we embrace our true selves, we express our emotions freely, we create boundaries. This allows the body to shift from survival to thriving. So in this state, the nervous system can finally relax and inflammation reduces. And both physical and emotional health improves. So living authentically, this means we're no longer suppressing or hiding who we are. And that emotional freedom directly impacts physical well-being. I feel like so many of us live our lives on the sidelines. Like for me, I did for so many years, and it might look like I was participating, like going to the beach. I did. I've always gone to the beach and I've always worn my bikini, but I wouldn't get up and I wouldn't walk down to the water or go swimming, because then people could see me and would see all my, lipedema moving and the dimple appearance. I would, the amount of times, like I love, quite sporty. I grew up, in sport, but I'd be with friends or whatever, but I didn't have the appropriate clothing on, like to play cricket in the backyard, which would mean if I ran, you hit the ball and you have to run. Could you imagine my legs? Like that's what my thought was. I was like, I wouldn't participate. And I love playing cricket. I'm really good at cricket. So these things that we miss out on, it actually really is meaning we're not living authentically. We're not doing what we really want. If you literally sat there and asked your inner child in that moment, she'd be screaming, Aimee, get up and play cricket. Aimee, what? Take me for a swim. Do you know what I mean? But we just sit there and live life on the sidelines. So I really encourage everyone to try. Don't let life slip you by just because of this condition.
You mentioned that, from an outward perspective, you were a participant, but there was, sort of, you were conscious about those things, physically or whatever that you had. And I identify with that. So I guess my whole life I have participated, but there's been a cloud of that conscious in a negative way of the things that you would like to change. So yep, I would wear a bikini, but I'd be like, oh, pull yourself in, or don't do that pose, or like quickly get into the water, as you said, instead of, but from an outsider's perspective, I was participating, but it was such a heavy thing to participate.
Like you were physically there, but you weren't emotionally there.
And you'd be exhausted afterwards because you'd be so stressed the whole time, because you'd be thinking about
stress.
That's right.
You're in that stress response, right?
Exactly.
And you want to, like you were saying before, be present. So being present is really just, and a great way, like what I started to do, say when I went to the beach, was you kind of put your blinders on, you cut out the rest of the world. And I just focused on how I felt internally instead of externally. The sun beaming onto my skin, the joy I felt when I would jump in the ocean, although I am scared of sharks. So that sent me into a state as well. But, like there are, but there are things, that I did find, find joy in the moment, I think is a really good message to kind of take you out of it, take you out of that headspace, and try to just bring you back within your body and enjoy that, enjoy that moment. Yeah. And one of my girls, she, after the program, went to a water, like slide park. What do you call it?
Theme park? A theme park. Oh, God, I can't imagine.
With her children, wore her swimmers, and she said that she had the best, and she goes, I would have never done this. I would have never done it. And she had the best day being present with her children. And, it's something the kids are always going to remember, right?
Yeah, I reckon my girls would love to go to, Wet and Wild, which is on the Gold Coast, one day. And I'm just thinking about how conscious I will feel when that day happens. But
that can be one of your goals.
Yeah, like
set an intention.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, we've spoken about we've spoken about a lot of things to do with our internal, and as a clinical nutritionist, your bread and butter is nutrition. How can nutrition support this process as
And this is like one of my favorite subjects in the world, right? Because this is what I live and breathe. But nutrition is such a powerful tool. It's my biggest tool. And I have to say, like, alongside that now, I am, a lot of my work, I've always worked on the healing side, but the nervous system regulation is definitely becoming up there with it, but they work hand in hand. It's because they support nervous system. The nutrition supports nervous system regulation because inflammation impacts the nervous system, arousal, and vice versa. So emotional stresses increase inflammation, and that makes our nervous system easily activated into fight or flight, freeze, and fawn. So what we eat, right, directly impacts inflammation levels in our body. So it's a no-brainer that we need to it helps by helping reducing inflammation. So anti-inflammatory foods, right? So omega-3, fishy, rich fish, leafy greens, antioxidants, they can help reduce the internal stress burden.
Wow.
So it's not going to heal or completely regulate our nervous system, but it's going to help that load. But it's not just what we eat. Like, I think this is a really important message about it's how we nourish our body with love, intention, because stress can often lead to poor eating, like the eating habits, like when we're stressed, what do we go and grab? We also, when we are stressed, burn through so many more nutrients. So we deplete our bodies, and that's why it's really important to provide our body with nutrient-dense foods, but also practicing gratitude for nourishment support, both physically, because it supports us both physical healing, but emotional well-being. And a holistic approach to nutrition combines nourishing food with mindful self-care, because this is how we allow our body to heal from the inside out. And it's just, I harp on about nutrition all the time. It's my main focus, but that's because it's my passion as well. But I can really see the effects when people are eating poorly. And unfortunately, it kind of goes hand in hand. Like, when someone is so stressed, they don't feel like they can manage to eat or put that time and effort into creating a nourishing, meal for themselves. And, that can be really hard, especially if it doesn't come second nature to you. I think that's the difference. Is for me, it's so second nature. I do not have to think when I hop in the kitchen about what I'm cooking. I'm eating, it just comes out and I make something really simple. So that takes time as well to get to.
Love of cooking as well. I mean, I can't say that I share a love of cooking. I love eating.
Love it.
That's my problem. And maybe if I took the time to be more informed about putting the right ingredients together, I would love cooking. But, coming from, I guess we're of a similar age, and we were always taught to work harder and harder and harder. And I think the new generation that's coming in is working smarter and less harder. And probably have more. We struggle to find the time to do the things that we know we should do for ourselves because of where you just work hard and you will get all the things. And we never got the things.
No. And that is such a big point, actually, because unfortunately, a lot of our nervous system, dysregulation comes from how we were raised.
For sure.
So, that generation has a lot to answer for. But we are doing, the next generation, we're hoping that we can improve that, right, with the way we parent them and help them to co-regulate. So,
it's so funny because I came from such a supportive household, but still I feel the pressure to do all the things and, work at a pace, effort equals outcome.
Yeah.
So the effort part, it's like if I do more and be more, and if I am more, then I will get A, B, C, D, E. And I'm forever learning as an adult that that's actually not the case. Yeah.
No, because exactly. And you can get things from not having to do so much. But it's that, like, not being able to, I saw this thing about that being a trauma response of, it was a really, an interesting reel that highlighted it of, like sitting down and relaxing, then someone like knocks on the door, comes in, and you get up to like go and do something. And there, it's like, because you don't feel like you can sit and relax because it's like, nope, there's something always to do.
Yeah. Or you're being lazy.
Yes, the lazy thing, right? Like that. I told I was lazy all the time.
Yeah.
And then I started calling myself lazy. I really did. And little did I know that things like blow drying your hair, or even last night I went to Pearl Jam, and Eddie asked us to all put on like our torch, and having my arm up, it was so funny. Sean, my husband, ended up like supporting my arms because they're burning, aren't they? I'm like, yes. Within like 20 seconds, like it wasn't even a long time, and it started to burn. I was just like, oh my gosh, it's so, they're so heavy, and my arms aren't even huge, but they're so heavy, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling that with putting the washing out at the moment. I've lost a lot of strength postpartum, and you're feeling it. And I'm like, I'm putting up like 3 or 4 things on the line. Like, how ridiculous. So I have to shake my arms out. I'm like, oh my God, where's my strength?
I know. And it's one thing that I feel like, unless you have lipedema, you really, like, you totally get it, right? And we can laugh about it because we understand just how it sounds so crazy, right, to other people. But
yeah, absolutely.
It's real.
You spoke about that you recently did a 12-week challenge with a group of ladies. Next year you have something incredibly exciting coming up, and we'd love to hear about it because you can support more women in a state. Tell us about what you're doing.
Oh my gosh, I am running or hosting the world's first Lipedema retreat in Bali. It's called Life as a Lipedema Goddess. Oh. I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm so excited because it's been like a labor of love for me. It's like my little creation before COVID. Okay, so Bali. Bali is the only place in the whole world that I can go on a holiday and not swell. Oh. And I've been a few times and not gain weight. Like, as in, that when you go on a holiday and by the end of the holiday, you're not even fitting in your clothes. They feel tight. Your swimmers are snug. Bali, it just never happened. And when I was first diagnosed, and then the trip that I took to Bali post that, I kind of just had like this moment of, oh my gosh, like I don't swell. I do actually drink every day, but I have a massage every day. The food over there is so incredibly, lippy friendly. And I feel at home when I'm there. I'm living my authentic self. Yeah. I'm in my shorts. I don't care what anybody thinks about my body. There's just this real peace within. And so when I was there, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to create this for other women and have a retreat. And I did organize one in 2020, but COVID hit. So that was cancelled. The universe just, obviously it wasn't the right timing. And then I started a family. So it just hasn't been the right timing. So it's been quite a while. But then the universe has given me another opportunity. I recently experienced a pregnancy loss, and I kind of decided to take that opportunity and use it and make it a positive and see the light in it and finally host my retreat. So it's next May, 2025, from the 1st of May to the 6th of May. So 5 nights, 6 days. And it's for any woman with lipedema, pre or post surgery, who's wanting to nourish your body, to gain self-confidence, to live that life as a lipedema goddess. I go in between both of them, guys, because I have clients from everywhere.
So do we.
We'll let you.
Yeah. But yeah, so I want you guys to join me, like out there, on this path to body love and acceptance in beautiful Bali, because it's just going to be the most amazing healing. We're going to, deep dive further into what we've been speaking about by today. And like, can you just imagine going to a place with a holiday that everyone around you has the same condition, understands what you're going through, where you literally will not feel ashamed to I get goosebumps all the time when I talk about this, to take, to have your legs out, just how freeing just sitting there would, that feeling be. So by the end of this retreat, like you're going to feel deeply supported because you're going to share the struggles, right, that we face every day. But you're going to be given priceless tools to manage lipedema through nutrition, so you know that you can face the challenges that we all have on this path to body loving acceptance. But there is, I should mention this, an early bird offer moment. So it's going to be until the 15th of December. So you've got a little bit of time. And you get $500 off the total cost of the retreat. And you only need a $500 deposit in Australian dollars, all the prices in Australian dollars, to secure your spot. But spots are limited because I'm only taking 8 girls away with me, and a couple of spots have already been taken. So I'm so excited about this. And if I'm pregnant or not, it's, whatever the universe is just going to bring for me, I'm going with the flow on this journey.
Incredible. I'd love to go to Bali and be around a community of women. That just sounds beautiful. Yeah. I'm so excited to hear all about it, Aimee. Thank you for sharing that with us.
No, thank you for allowing me to share it with your audience.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Our pleasure. Well, Aimee, thank you so much for joining us today. We have learned so much, and I think these are conversations that we will keep having because we need to know how to look after ourselves and how much living inauthentically impacts who we are. Because I didn't say it before, but I think we all sort of put masks on and we have to put different hats on as well and be different people in different situations. And who are we really? Especially once you get motherhood involved, you're like, well, now I'm a mum too. I've got to show up for this little person. And who am I? Who am I?
Yeah.
So
it's difficult to navigate, but you don't have to do it alone. I think that's the great thing. We can get support, and I think it's important to go get that support and just help yourself on the journey.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Aimee, for joining us and for building your community. And we can't wait to speak to you again.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
When we started the Lipedema podcast, we relied on word of mouth and existing connections.
Our following has happened organically, and we are so honoured by your support.
As we learn more about the world of social media and algorithms, we have a request.
When you are listening to our podcast or watching on YouTube, let us know what you think.
Hit follow or subscribe.
Leave us a comment or write a review.
The more engagement we get, the more our message is shared.
And the greater our reach to those women suffering in silence.
Thank you for listening to the Lipedema podcast. Lipedema and its symptoms vary from individual to individual. The opinions and advice voiced in this podcast are of a personal nature and used for educational purposes.
Please take away from this podcast what resonates with you, and please see your GP or preferred specialist for diagnosis and healthcare. We are Shelley and Tiana from the Lipedema Podcast. Until our next episode, bye for now.